Get him. Get him.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
That was a real snake. I was excited.
Whoa.
Before we get into today's video, I did want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody, everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance in hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know, y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. You guys, I do have a dress on, just so you know. I know there's going to be times that I lean up because y'all already know I'm super animated and I can't just sit here and tell you a story like this. So I do have clothes on if it looks like this from here up. Anyways, I hope everybody had a great week. How was your week? Did you get outside? Did you get some sunshine? Did you go for a walk? Anybody? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the very highly requested Hart family. If you guys don't know the way I do my videos, I'm going to tell y'all the whole story first, and then I'm going to give you guys my opinion at the end, and I'm also going to talk about some things I think we can learn from this story. The Hart family consisted of the two mothers, who were Jennifer Hart and Sarah Hart. They were a married couple who met in college, and to the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple and perfect family, okay? They had beautiful adopted 6 babies, 6 children. Their friends would actually even come out later and say that they were envious of the Harts because they had the perfect marriage, the perfect family. The kids all dressed perfectly. They had the perfect social media pictures. Feel like we've been here before a time or two, right? They were very much involved in different activism and community service, and they volunteered at times at the food pantry. And this was all, captured on social media, and the lighting was always right, and they were always reading or eating their vegetables. And to the friends, family, and the outside world, they had everything.
I mean, what you're showing me that they were part of that and the pictures, it was not the family we saw next door.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, behind closed doors, like we have seen countless of times before, it was a very different world. So let's just start at the beginning. Jennifer and Sarah Hart were both born in 1979, just months apart from each other. They both were from South Dakota. Jen had 2 siblings and Sarah had 3. Both were the oldest children. Now, Sarah, there's not a whole lot that I could find about her childhood other than she was described as the more reserved one, the more quiet one, kind of more of the responsible one, the rule follower. However, Jennifer was the total opposite personality. She was very vivacious and kind of in your face. She was described as very confident and funny in the life of the party. She could also be known to be abrasive and very stern in her talking. She lived with her mother for the most part. Her parents were divorced. And then when she was 14 years old, it is said that she got into an argument with her mother and she went to go live with her father. Now, while she was living with her father, she was the rule breaker of the two between her and Sarah. She started getting in trouble. Like, her dad would go to work and she would be doing whatever she wanted to. It sounded to me like typical teenage stuff. But nevertheless, her and her father started butting heads, and he told her she had to go back to her mom's, and she went back to her mom's. So this was kind of the life of Jennifer. Jennifer and Sarah started dating in college when they were both going to Northern State University. In 2002, Sarah graduated in special education, and Jennifer was actually going to school to be a teacher as well. And Jennifer did not finish school, and Sarah did finish, which just kind of goes with this whole theme theme of them two, you know, Sarah being a little bit more responsible and Jennifer being the more like wild one. She drops out of college, which not saying that's wild, but when you're comparing the two to get their personalities, you guys are following me, right? In 2004, the ladies moved to Minnesota, and then in 2005, Sarah changed her last name to Hart, and they both started working in retail. Now, it was said later that Jennifer and Sarah kind of had a closeted, well, they definitely had a closeted relationship. They told all their family and friends that they were just best friends, that they were roommates. Later on in 2009, they did get married and made it official, but at this time, they were living in this like closeted type of relationship, which was probably very stressful for them, but they made it work. In 2004, the two ladies took in what we know to be their first foster child. She was a 15-year-old young teenage girl, and she went by the name of Lee. Now, Lee, who is now, because this was back in 2004, she's a grown adult. She's in her 20s. Different friends of Jennifer and Sarah came forward later and said that she was saying that the young 15-year-old girl, Lee, was like eating out of the trash can. And one day when they were taking Lee to her therapy appointment, they drove up to the therapy appointment. They got her out of the car. She went into her therapy appointment, and the two women, the Hart women, drove away, and they never returned. Lee later would come forward and say that she had no idea that they were dropping her off and never coming back until she went into her therapy appointment, and her therapist told her that she wasn't going back to live with them and that she would be going to a new foster parent's house. She said when she got to the new foster parent's house, all of her stuff was already there. So she knew right then and there that Jennifer and Sarah had planned on dropping her off and walking away from her. And she was under the assumption she was going to be living with them until she was 18. She also said that she never ate out of the trash or anything like that, which if she did, so what? Well, come to find out, not long after the two women dropped Lee off and drove away and never returned, they took in 3 siblings. This was in the Texas foster care system, and this was around 2006. The 3 siblings was 7-year-old Marquise, 4-year-old Hannah, and 2-year-old Abigail. At this point, Jen especially was very vocal on social media using Facebook where her friends and family were. And at this point, her friends and family knew that her and Sarah was a couple as well and that they were taking in these foster children. Now, the very first night that they took in these foster children, Jen made some posts on Facebook describing what her first night was like with these 3 children. Abigail urinated everywhere and gashed herself on the chin by falling downstairs. Hannah smeared feces everywhere and gorged herself and needed the Heimlich and then projectile vomited. And Marquise hit his head on the closet wall and then, while using multiple different voices, claimed to be possessed by a demon. And at the end of this post, she wrote, "If not us, then who?" So, real quick, my opinion on something. Why would you post all that? This is their first night there living. Why would you post that on social media? Even if all of that was true, which hearing that, it sounds like a whole lot that happened in one night with 3 different kids. I mean, down to the, saying you were possessed, the little boy was saying he was possessed by a demon using different voices. Now, it may have all happened, okay? Abigail being 2 years old and urinating everywhere, not shocking. She's 2 years old. She's in a foster care system. She's in a new house where she don't know anybody. I mean, it sounds pretty normal. Nevertheless, I have no idea, thinking from a mother's standpoint, why you would put all that on social media and embarrass those babies like that. But I guess she did it because she wanted to make sure all of her Facebook friends knew that last little sentence, which was, "If not us, who?" The 2 women would go on later to adopt these 3 kids, change their last name to Hart, and take them on as their own. They posted many beautiful Facebook pictures with them and expressed their lives and the Facebook life that they wanted people to see, which again made a lot of people envy them. Like, look at them, they're doing it. Look at their 3 beautiful children and look how happy they look and look how perfect their photos are. And the kids are all perfectly healthy. And just when people that were watching thought it couldn't get any more perfect, the The two women, Sarah and Jennifer, announced that they are going to be taking in 3 more children. Now, these 3 children were siblings as well, and their names were Sierra, Devontae, and Jeremiah. Now, their situation was super unique and also gut-wrenching when you know the ending of the story. Their mother had actually lost them in the system due to a substance abuse problem. God bless her. God bless everybody that loved these children. But she lost her children to the system. Now, it is said that when she lost them, the father fought for them, but for whatever reason, the courts would not give the 3 children to the father. The aunt, who was the father's sister, she wanted to take in these 3 kids. And typically in the system wants to keep children with a family member to keep them closer to home, versus just sending them off into different foster cares and then being adopted if they ever get adopted. A lot of these kids, when they go into the foster care system and they're older, they really just bounce around from foster care house to foster care house until they age out of the system. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people adopting 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. Not saying it doesn't happen, because it absolutely does, but typically when people go into the system to adopt, they're looking for little kids because they're looking to actually have what they feel like is their family. They're going to raise a child. Nevertheless, the aunt really wanted to get these kids, but she was not able to get them in the end, and this woman jumped through hoops to get her nieces and nephews. She even went as far as that first she had a 3-bedroom house. She sold that house and bought a 5-bedroom house so she would have enough space and she could satisfy the courts in order to get her 3 nieces and nephews. However, one day when the 3 kids were in her care, the social worker showed up at the front door and she was at work and the biological mom was there babysitting them while she was at work, and the biological mom was not to be alone with them unsupervised. Well, when the social worker found that out, they took the kids, they went into the system, and they never came out. And so that is how these 3 children ended up in the Hart family and eventually being adopted by the Hart family. So now you've got Jennifer, you've got Sarah, and you have the 6 precious, beautiful Hart children. From very early on, starting in 2008, there was signs of abuse going on with these children behind closed doors. The first reporting was with 6-year-old Hannah while she was at school. The teacher saw her arms and saw that she had bruises all over her, and when they asked her what happened, she told the teacher that her mom beat her with a belt. When they took her and really looked at her, they realized that she had bruises all over her. It was reported to CPS, and when the Child Protective Services came to speak to Jennifer and Sarah, they said that she fell down the steps and that she didn't remember. And man, this story sounds so familiar. However, the Hart mothers, 2 months later, withdrew Hannah from school. In 2010, the new school started noticing signs of abuse on the children as well. 6-year-old Abigail Hart started talking about how she had an owie. When she was questioned by the teachers, they called her into a room to ask her why she hurt or what happened to her. And she said that her mother, Jen, grabbed her by the neck and held her head under the water. When the teachers asked her why she would do this to her, she said because she had a penny in her pocket and her mother said that she stole the penny. She also told the teachers that her mother punched her. 6-year-old little girl. You guys, this doesn't matter how old your kid is, but I mean, like, this is very disturbing to hear. The police got involved and they went over to the Hart house and they interviewed all the children. All of the children told the police that they were spanked, grounded, and denied food when they were in trouble. However, when Sarah and Jennifer spoke to the investigators, Jennifer said, "Oh no, Abigail has it all wrong. I didn't do that. Sarah did that." And Sarah took the blame for it. Sarah was then arrested for domestic abuse and she was put on 1 year probation. Now, at this point in time, it is said that Sarah is the one that worked, but Jennifer, the vivacious, the abrasive, the confident, the funny, that one. She was the one that stayed home with the kids all day long, or cleaned the house, or if they went to school, got them on and off the bus, and all of that. So for Sarah to be the one that did that to her, a lot of people believe that Jennifer had Sarah take the fall for her because the little girl Abigail said that it was Jen that did it. With this whole situation and teachers at different facilities calling in CPS, the cops began to really investigate the two Hart mothers. And as soon as Sarah was done with her year probation, they packed up and moved again. In 2013, the Hart family landed themselves in West Lynn, Oregon. They rented a house there and they had goats and chickens, and the Hart family was very well known in the area. They would go to all of these like different music festivals and the kids would dance around, and everybody loved the Hart kids when they came. I mean, they were described as having these big smiles and these big personalities, and they were so full of love.
Celebration to meditation, giving thanks for all creation. We are so provided for. We are so provided for. We are so provided for. We are so provided for.
To the point that friends and people that knew the Hart family that never even wanted kids began to want kids because of how precious these 6 children were and how full of love they were and how happy that they seemed. Again, Jennifer's Facebook showed nothing but smiling faces. Pictures of them being homeschooled, holding signs that says love is always beautiful with big smiles. Pictures of them all with silly faces, and even happy Mother's Day photos. And then there was this Facebook post right here, which I found very interesting, especially when you guys hear what we're going to talk about next. And let me just read this to you. It's Jen Hart, November 2013. Checking out at the grocery store. The cashier, looking befuddled. What is this? The kid 1. Big grin. Those are leeks. Cashier continues ringing. I've never seen someone buy so many vegetables. Kid 2. Well, we're vegetarians. Vegetables are delicious. Cashier, but your mom didn't even get any snacks for you. Me, biting my tongue. He must not have seen the kale. Kale for the win. Now, you guys, listen, I love me some good, baked kale, but come on. These kids were adopted. They weren't born into this lifestyle. I don't know about you guys, but even, I'm going to say most, not all, okay? But most kids, when they're given the option of a Snickers or Goldfish or Cheez-Its and kale, I don't know, maybe your kids love kale more than they love candy. Not saying they won't eat it, but come on. And Jen is making this post acting like the kids that she adopted, okay, that probably had a doggone cosmic brownie before in their life and some Roman noodles, okay, that they were like, well, they must not have seen the kale. That's all fine and dandy until you guys find out that the kids at school were saying that they were hungry and they weren't getting enough to eat at home. In 2011, Hannah told the school nurse that she hadn't eaten. Jennifer became so angry with her, it is said that she shoved a banana and shoved peanuts in her mouth. When Sarah was confronted about not feeding the kids, she said, oh, they're just playing the food card again. They're always playing the food card. It also came out later that the Hart kids were coming to school and the other kids that went to school with them would be bringing them food from home. That the kids were also seen before grabbing food out of the trash cans and asking other kids for food to the point that the other kids would bring them food. They were always hungry. It is also said that teachers noticed that the Hart kids were very thin and frail. It did come out later on that all of the kids measured underweight and under their height for their growth chart. Now, I know that sometimes some kids grow slower than the others. It is not abnormal for a child to be small or bone structure, smaller, everything, but all 6 kids. And the first 3 kids all had different fathers, okay? And then the second 3 kids, there were completely different genetics from all three of the first kids. So you've got 4 different genetic backgrounds, and every single one of these babies were underweight and under height for their growth chart, and all saying they were hungry and all saying that they're not fed. I mean, chances are at this point that the kids weren't being fed the way that they should be. A child welfare worker would later say that the teachers decided that they were not going to call CPS or investigators anymore because they feared that the kids were being punished when they got home. And that is a real thing. And I know all about that. I'm sure some of you guys do too. That, that they quit reporting it because they realized that nobody was taking these children out of the home. And every time that Sarah and Jennifer found out that they were at school saying that they were either hit or abused or not being fed, that the school has to send those kids back to those people, and that they thought they were being punished at home. However, in 2013, the authorities were notified again. Now, you guys, the Hart mothers, Jennifer and Sarah, would always say and tell people that they felt like because they were a same-sex couple that people were calling CPS on them, and that's why they kept moving states. So I can understand how to some people it would seem like they're being picked on because they're a same-sex couple and they're raising all of these adopted children, and they felt like they were being picked on. So some people believed them. However, friends and families spoke out. They were interviewed by the investigators, and actual friends and family of the Hart mothers said that they felt like those kids were living in a bad environment. They would say things like the kids had to raise their hands before speaking, or that Jennifer did not feed them enough. That one time that they ordered a pizza and she gave all 6 kids a little slice and that was it. And when they went to sleep and woke up the next morning, Jennifer realized that the whole pizza had been eaten and she went off on the kids. She told them they would not be eating breakfast and she made all of them lay in the bed for 5 hours because they ate more pizza than that one little slice that she had given them. Friends and family also said that anytime they said anything to Jennifer, like, seems a bit harsh, like, why are the kids having to walk in single file lines everywhere? Why do they have to raise their hand to speak? Why can't they have a second piece of pizza? That anytime they spoke up to Jennifer or questioned her about it, that the Hart mothers would cut them off and never speak to that family or friend again. The investigators would later say that they heard all of this and that they went and interviewed the kids and the Hart mother, but none of it was substantial enough to remove the children from the house. Having them raise their hands before they speak or telling them they have to skip breakfast, to the police, it wasn't enough to remove the kids from the home. Because of all this commotion, once again, the Hart mothers packed up all 6 kids and moved to a new state. At this point, they moved to Washington State, and this is around 2017. When they moved this time, they moved into a house that was on a 2-acre lot. Really, really nice house. The first neighbor was pretty good distance away. I mean, they had a neighbor, but it wasn't like a next door neighbor type of thing. And this is where the Hart mothers seemed to be able to really isolate the children. At this point, the kids were being homeschooled, which is always a red flag. However, by March 23rd of 2017, somebody had called the authorities on the Hart mothers.
Okay. And what was the reason we were checking on them?
Concerns that the children aren't being fed.
Well, they were all small. I mean, the one girl who was 12 looked like she was 7. Both of her teeth were missing, front teeth, and we questioned, what's up with the teeth thing, and they said, well, she didn't want them replaced. We thought that was a little weird, but anyway, they were all very small.
Very thin.
Yeah.
And tiny.
In August of 2017, 14-year-old Hannah, around 1:30 a.m., jumped out of the second-story window of the Hart family home. She jumped down and she ran as fast as she could to that one neighbor's house and started banging on the door. It was a couple that lived there, and when the husband got up out of bed and opened the door. She came in and she closed the door and she said, please, please do not let my mother find me here. And he's looking like, oh my gosh, this is a teenage girl banging on the door, like, what's up? But they had already seen the Hart kids before and thought that it was a little weird. Something weird was going on over there. They noticed that all the kids walked in a single file line. They hardly ever came outside. The blinds were always closed. The kids were always inside. And they all looked very, very thin and frail and like they weren't healthy or even happy. She ran into the wife's room and started crying and hit her knees and said, please don't let her get me.
Some kids that I feel is being highly abused, and I can't wait until Monday in Woodland, Washington.
What's the address?
Okay, I'm going to give you the address of my daughter's house because it's right next door.
Okay, and what's going on there?
Well, they have 4 black children, which that part doesn't matter, and they're new here in Texas, but the other night, a little girl jumped out of the second-story window on the roof and then down onto the ground and ran to my daughter, and this is like 2 in the morning, begging them to help her.
When did that happen?
About 3-4 nights ago.
Okay.
And my son-in-law doesn't want to get involved, but the more I sit on it, I just can't live with it. Somebody's got to go there and check on these kids.
And so how old was the little kid that did that ran to your daughter's house?
About 12 years old, 13. And when they came looking for her, she was begging my daughter not to let them know she was there. And then eventually my son-in-law let him know. And then she had all 4 of the kids come back later and to say everything was okay, and they were all standing at attention like they were just scared to death. And I think there's something very serious going on there. And they're here from Texas. The kids might even be kidnapped.
Okay. And so did the girl ever say why she was scared?
No, she was crying, and it was 2 in the morning, and my daughter said the biggest problem was she's half awake. She couldn't believe what was going on. And and basically, my son-in-law is like most people. They don't want to get involved. And so he's keeping my daughter out of it. But since she's told me about it, I just can't live with it. I'm very concerned for these kids. I just can't let this go any longer. Those kids, I think, is in very serious danger.
The couple would say that a few months later, Devontae started coming over and asking for food.
One of the children came over and started asking for food. And it went on for a period of time until we kind of determined that he was probably reaching out. And we determined that we should call the Child Protective Services, and that's what we did on Friday.
You said he was asking for a lot of food.
Yeah, a lot of food. I mean, it started out very,
tortillas, and it ended up a case of food. Multiple, cured meats. Non-perishable food items.
Right.
And was asking that we not tell his mom and to hide it and put it by the fence so he could get to it, and that they were withholding food from him as punishment.
The neighbors would later say that, he was asking for stuff like for bread and for peanut butter and maybe some fruit and little things like that. The kids weren't over there asking for Snickers and yo-yos and, candy. They were asking for substantial food, which the neighbors knew even more. Okay, something is terribly wrong over here. These kids are begging for food and asking us to leave it by the fence. Like, who does that, right? Neighbors then, of course, they reported it. They reported it to CPS. Now, investigators would later say that they showed up to the house, and when they did, they saw the Hart's GMC truck pulling in to the garage and the garage closing. Well, they went up, knocked on the door, and nobody ever answered the door. And they knew that they were there because they saw them pull up. But what can they do? They couldn't kick in the door. Now we're into 2018, and the investigators, to try to do a welfare check and check on the kids, they checked 2 more times and were not able to get anybody to come to the door. The next time that they would come and knock on the Hart's family door, they would be gone for good. The Hart family packed up everything into a vehicle and went on a little road trip. They drove down through Oregon and eventually ended up in California. Now, Sarah was still working as a retail manager at this time, and one of her coworkers said that at 3 o'clock in the morning on March 24th, she got a text message from Sarah that said, "I'm really sick and I'm not going to be coming into work tomorrow." The coworker said that that was not like Sarah. She was the most dependable person that she knew, and I mean, she was a manager, so they were depending on her. But she not only didn't show up to work the next day or respond to any text messages, but she didn't return to work again.
She just said that she just is unable to come out and wasn't able to go to work, and thought she was going to have to go to the doctor. I checked the hospital, so they didn't have any record of her, and I think her phone is now dead.
Not long after that, on March 26th of 2018, a German tourist called 911 because as they were out in California, like to where this like ledge was, this cliff was, taking photos, they looked down and saw this GMC truck 100 feet down off of the cliff on the rocks with waves crashing onto the vehicle, and it crunched like a Coke can. When the cops got there, helicopters got there, everybody got there to try to rescue this vehicle. What they found inside of it was very, very sad. They found Jennifer and Sarah Hart, both deceased. They were still in the vehicle, and one of the ladies was actually trapped between the seats in the back. They found Marcus, Abigail, and Jeremiah's bodies a few hundred yards away, and they were deceased. And now they were looking for the other 3 children. 2 weeks later, they found Sierra's body washed up on the beach somewhere, and she was deceased. And then a few days after that, a foot that was still in a shoe washed up on a beach, and they did a DNA test and found that it belonged to Hannah. Devontae's body was never found. At first, the investigators thought, like, what happened? They went off of this cliff, and the 6 children, and they're gone and the parents are gone. But as the investigators started to look more into it, they found when they looked at the road, there was no skid marks, which means nobody tried to stop. They also, when they investigated on the GMC truck and they pulled the computer system out of it, they found that it was stuck on 90 miles an hour.
Based on what we have preliminarily, I can say that roughly 70 feet from the edge, and it was pure acceleration from the last brake application until it hit the bottom of the cliff, the ocean.
They also found that while they were literally getting ready to go over, Sarah was sitting in the passenger seat Googling. Her Google searches, you guys. Can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 120-pound woman? Is death by drowning relatively painless? How long does it take to die from hypothermia while drowning in a car? No kill shelters for dogs. So, I mean, it was obvious to the investigators that this was not an accident, that this was actually a murder-suicide. And the fact that she was looking for a no-kill shelter for the dogs, but not the kids. They also found that in 2 of the children's bodies, there was an overwhelming amount of the medication that is like in Benadryl, as well as in Sarah's body. When the investigators got a search warrant and searched into the Hart family home as they were trying to piece together what happened, why the parents would do this, what they found was really eerie, but also normal. They said that there wasn't much out of place. The house was very nice, tidy, and clean. However, in the bedrooms were not set up for somebody that had kids. There was no toys. There was nothing fun other than some board games in one area of the house. There wasn't even beds for all the kids. And they also found, I believe, 11 bottles of wine, even though anybody that knew Jennifer and Sarah said that they didn't drink. But yet there was 11 bottles of wine. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Jen, who was driving, they tested her blood alcohol level and she was way over the legal limit. So she had been drinking and driving and drove these babies off of a cliff without a seatbelt on, which whether she did it with a seatbelt or not, but without a seatbelt just tells you that this was a plan. So that was sadly the end of the Hart family's lives. But I want to go over some final thoughts with you guys and my opinions and all of that. First thing is, There is nothing worse, as a kid especially, than to reach out for help and not only not get it, but then to be returned to your abuser and have to face them. I cannot imagine what those kids went through. So many people failed those babies. So many. It wasn't just one state. It was multiple states. And I also think it should be a rule that if you are reported to DCF, that you can't just take your kids out of school at that point. Like, because we've seen that time and time again. When somebody is abusing their children and it gets reported at the school, they just take them out of school. And then they move states, or they homeschool them. That should not be allowed to be done. I mean, and I know, are we infringing on people's rights? I mean, what if they get a job offer in another state? I mean, there's all these different things but if there is like an actual investigation, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I've done videos on here, some of my older Q&As, where I talked about like the one time that I admitted when I was in first grade that the man that I was living with had beat me with the metal part of the belt, and I had whelps all up my neck. And the teacher saw it, sent me to the guidance counselor, and I told him I got a spanking. I mean, it was normal to me. I mean, I got a spanking. But I had, now as an adult looking back, I can only imagine what they thought, because here's this little first grade little girl who they already knew had this trouble past, and I have literal metal whelps, the square with that little thing in it, up my neck and on my back. I mean, they could see it with my clothes on. And of course they called DCF, and DCF came and questioned me, and I told them that I got a spanking. And then the woman, the wife of them, said I fell down the steps, which is so funny because that's exactly what Jen said. Said I fell down the steps. And then guess what? They had to send me back with those people. And it was to pay when I got home. I spent so much time trying to earn these people's love after that and making them accept me, because now I have to live in the house with them, and they felt like I told on them. I just cannot imagine what these 6 kids went through. It's so devastating. It's so hard. And then you just send them back to their abusers. I also want to say, all these pictures, you would see these videos of, especially Devontae, he would be at these festivals, and he would be crying and hugging other people, and everybody be like, oh, he's so emotional, he's so sweet. Or the picture of him hugging the police officer during the BLM protest, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. When I see these pictures of this little boy or these videos, I'm seeing him crying out like, somebody help me. I cannot imagine how confused this little boy must have been. I also wanted to say how devastating this has to be to the bio families that lost these kids.
I thought maybe I would see the kids again, and I just wanted to hold on to let them know there was somebody who fought for you.
They went into the system thinking that they were going to be with this perfect little family, especially if any of them looked at Jen's Facebook ever and saw those pictures. These mothers that lost their kids, and fathers, and the aunt probably thought, wow, they are in a better place. But they had no idea what was going on behind closed doors, which, again, like we've talked about this a million times, you guys, don't look at people's social media lives and think that that is real in reality. Don't do that, because we've seen it time and time and again. It's a highlight reel. And how can you get involved? Well, check into the Big Brother, Big Sister programs. I know that it's really hard right now with the virus and all that going around, but the Big Brother, Big Sister programs, I'm very reluctant to encourage people into getting into fostering, because you really got to be called for it. You've got to have the house for it. I'm very reluctant to tell people just on here to get into fostering, because it's not a social media trophy to do it. It should be something that's in your heart, and you've prayed about it, and you have the house for it and the heart for it, and you're in it for the long haul type of thing. So, but definitely Big Brother, Big Sister programs, donate to these nonprofit organizations if you can, and help in those ways. So, my heart breaks for these kids. It's so hard to just look at these babies' pictures, because they didn't deserve any of this. It's if you see something, report it. Report it. If you're reporting it, and I've said this before in other videos, if you report something on a family that you think is seriously wrong, seriously, not that you're just mad at the mama for something, but seriously wrong, if this family is taking care of their kids, it should be no problem. They're going to come in, they're going to inspect, it's going to be nothing. But if you think kids are being abused, report it. All right, my loves, have you guys heard about this story? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. Please do not forget to like it. It's a free way that you can help your girl out. And until next time, I love you guys so very much. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye. Love you guys. Bye.
Dreaming in the dark, we are nothing more than dust. You search but you stay lost. We are reaching for the stars.